And joining us now, Kanika Chadda Gupta, TV journalist and host of That's Total Mom Sense podcast. Kanika, I hope I didn't butcher your name. Really worked on this one. Guests on your podcast range from entrepreneurs like the one and only Bobbi Brown and other female founders. This is really incredible. So what can listeners expect from your podcast?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So my listeners are predominantly parents, and I know that the struggle and the juggle and the snuggle is all too real. I had my 3 kids in 18 months. I had twins, my son and daughter, and then a younger son. So I was thrown into the deep end. And when I was scrambling for resources, I found a lot of commiserating and complaining, and I wanted to change all that and shift the narrative. So That's Total Mom Sense is really dedicated to being informative, interesting, inclusive, and inspiring. And so I bring on these thought leaders who we all know and admire, but I share about their life in a completely different way. So with Bobbi Brown, we know her as this beauty industry mogul, but she also was the PTA president for her 3 sons. Rebecca Minkoff, famed designer, and she came out with her book Fearless. She shares how she would be pumping or breastfeeding backstage at New York Fashion Week because that was a priority for her family. And lastly, Daphne Oz, TV personality, who's an incredible cook, she invites her 4 kids into the kitchen to learn with her. And that's a life skill that she's passing on to them. And I think that's the most important work that we're doing is we are really building our future. It's a responsibility and a privilege that we have as parents that we're raising the innovators and change makers of tomorrow.
It's really inspirational. And again, the title of the podcast includes mom sense. So how would you define that mom sense? What does it really mean?
Sure. I love puns, and mom sense is a fun play on words, but it's essentially our built-in 6th sense. And I think all parents have this. It's our superpower of intuition. And so not only do we know what we need to do for ourselves, somehow that extends to our kids. So know that you should trust that inner knowing, and no doctor, no teacher, no one can tell you the best way to raise your children. You already know how.
We talked about this just a little bit earlier, kind of the pandemic's effect on women in the workforce and specifically mothers really hit disproportionately. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that moms are facing right now?
Yeah, I think there's 2 of them. One is the childcare crisis, and then the second is dividing the workload at home. The Great Resignation is raging on. 4.5 million Americans left the workforce by choice or by circumstance, and many of them were women and mothers. And you're absolutely right that we have been shouldering the brunt. So I feel like that is, the need of the hour is, solving this childcare crisis. And there's been so many disputes about President Biden's $400 billion Build Back Better plan. What I'm most concerned about are the single moms, the parents who are divorced and are co-parenting, or those who have differently wired children at home, or have pre-existing health conditions, or can't afford childcare, which ranges from $12,000 upwards of $40,000, $50,000 a year. So I want to be able to provide resources to help this community. And then the second thing was dividing the workload at home. It really does take a village. And I'm encouraging dads to pull up a seat at the table too. I have had my friend Eve Rodsky on the show, and she wrote an incredible book called Fair Play. And it's about kind of delegating who's doing what tasks to manage the household and the child rearing. And it really takes that to create harmony at home. And I've also had my friend Michael Perry. He's the founder of Maple, and it's a project management app for parents. And he has joined me on a spinoff called What Matters Most with Maple. And we talk about all the issues that dads are facing, because I think that's important too. Everyone is feeling the stress, and we have to have everyone's buy-in to raise our kids and be there for them.
Yes, it's really insightful and important here. I do want to mention you began your career as an anchor and executive producer for CNN. So what caused you to change your career path and become an entrepreneur and podcaster?
Sure. Life. I was fortunate to have CNN as the springboard for my career in media. And, I was stationed in India where I covered everything from the 26/11 terror attacks to reporting from the biggest slum in the world, Dharavi, with 1 million residents during Slumdog Millionaire's Oscar win. But when I moved back stateside and got married and my husband and I were family planning, I kind of had this aha moment where I knew I wanted to be involved when I had my kids, and I was really seeking flexibility and freedom. And so podcasting has afforded me that. And it's great to be able to help this community of parents and, parlay my skills in script writing and interviewing and production in this whole new medium to reach them and touch their lives and provide support, because I get it. I think it's so important to be a parent and be able to serve parents in this way.
I want to ask you to that end, if you have any advice for parents, but specifically moms that are maybe reevaluating their career right now and looking to make a transition, especially during this time.
Yes, absolutely. So according to research by Legal Jobs, women own 12.3 businesses, which is 42% of all the companies in the US. So I think now we're getting a little innovative and we understand that we can apply our skills and become entrepreneurs and self-made small business owners. So I think if you have this itch to take your idea forward and you know that you can parlay your skills in a different way, do it. And your kids you're going to be modeling that for your kids. So all the more reason to live your life purpose.
Kanika Chadda Gupta, TV journalist and host of That's Total Mom Sense podcast. Thank you so much for joining us here on Cheddar.